Fantasy football playoffs are almost here. Maybe you need a win this week to get in. Let's see if we can give you some help. Joe Pisapia is with us. He's got Fantasy Sports Today, of course, Sunday mornings here on SportsGrid, and I'm here on Fridays, Saturdays, throughout the weekend too. And he also, of course, has the Fantasy Black Book. I saw the Baseball Black Book out already. I
Not
mean,
yet.
the ink
Almost.
is...
Almost.
Oh, okay. I was like, the
The
ink is not
cover.
even dry
It's
on
the
the baseball season.
no, no,
Okay.
no. The Fantasy Black Book is in process for baseball. December
Okay.
15th release. That's what we do, and we do updates obviously as things go on. But just
Yes.
did the cover release. Shohei Ohtani, the cover boy this year, which should surprise nobody. He's pretty good at baseball. Craig Mish. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he definitely is. But we're still in football mode here, so let's continue. Last week of buys in the NFL, a bad timing for a lot of people who need a win to get in, especially having Christian McCaffrey, who's been a superstar all season long. The 49ers are off, so are the Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers. Those are the four teams off this week. So let's go through some of the winners and losers in fantasy, Joe, and definitely, I think, very interesting to see if somebody picked up Joe Burrow off the waiver wire a couple of weeks ago, because he's back with the Bengals, played, of course, very well on Thanksgiving and threw to Jamar Chase a bunch of times. The Bears look a lot like the Lions of last year with those running backs, both Swift and Monangai, playing well. And unfortunately, Amon-Ra St. Brown went down, which is a big loss in
Yeah.
fantasy. But as a result of that, somebody else stepped up for the Lions in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're looking at first Joe Burrow, having that comeback game. I think a lot of us were questioning, well, how good is he going to be? He hasn't played football in many weeks. Well, Joe Burrow, never tell him no. That's one thing you got to learn about Joe Burrow. Never tell him he can't. He's got that Tom Brady streak in him, which you got to love. So obviously, Joe Burrow, fantastic back performance. He's going to get T. Higgins back this week, playing Buffalo this week. That game already has a high total in the 50s. I'm sure it's still going to go way over that regardless, because neither of those teams play a lot of defense. So I think that's a great thing for fantasy managers who held on in Superflex leagues and waited, like I have in a couple leagues, where he just waiting, hoping he would play again this season before the playoffs, and he did. But obviously, a great opportunity there, really boost the value of Jamar Chase too, which I think is super important. You mentioned Kyle Monangai too. That's another guy that I was very much in on going into the season. A lot of the last draft picks that I would make in a lot of drafts would be Kyle Monangai, and just trying to wait for him to emerge from that backfield. Because the one thing I know about DeAndre Swift, wherever he goes, he's not the guy for touchdowns, no matter what happens. And I think that's something you always keep in mind too. Wherever he is, that people just don't seem to love him around the goal line. And I think Monangai brings an edge here. And as the weather gets colder in Chicago and these games get more important here, I think you're going to see a lot more Kyle Monangai here. He's the more physical of the two running backs, and he's looked spectacular. So certainly Joe Burrow and certainly Kyle Monangai, some big winners from this week in fantasy. And I'll tell you what, too, Jameson Williams was that guy that really stepped up on Thanksgiving Day. He had to. Amon-Ra St. Brown out. I know that's going to be a big deal. We'll talk about that on the waiver wire too, how that affects people in that bubble of the playoffs as well, or even into the playoffs. But JMO responded in a big way, so it's great to see how he showed up on Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, Dan Campbell's ability to manage situational football never shows up, and the Lions lost.
Yeah, it's been a tough go for the Lions recently. The Bengals, by the way, mathematically alive for the playoffs. If they win out, they've got the Bills this week. That could end them, but we'll see if it happens. And then, the road gets a little easier. The Ravens haven't been great. The Dolphins' defense isn't so good. Neither are the Cardinals. And then they end the season with the Cleveland Browns. Remains to be seen. But, in fantasy, most people don't play that last week of the season. All right, now let's go to the fantasy losers. The Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you didn't think things could get any worse with J.J. McCarthy. My gosh, Max Brosmer was just awful. And I guess they'll go back to McCarthy this week. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a tough game. Saquon Barkley's had a tough season overall. Shouldn't be a surprise with all the usage that he got last week. But I guess, Joe, let's start off with the Vikings here. My son is playing for his first time ever in a competitive fantasy football league. And, he's got Jefferson, and I'm like, I don't have the answer for you. Like, I don't know what to do here. I mean, he was your first pick. There's jokes on social media that you should cut Jefferson now so someone else picks him up and starts him against you this week. I mean, it has gotten that bad. I mean, I don't recall something like this happening, Joe, in a really long time, where the first pick, the second or third or fifth pick in the draft is such a bust, and he's healthy for the whole year. I mean, do we go back to Moss being on the Raiders? That's like the best comp I can give at this point. I mean, and then he went to New England and he was great again, but what is going on here?
Maybe Justin Jefferson will go to New England next year and he'll be great again. Look, it's not his fault. I want to hug him like in the movie Good Will Hunting, and Robin Williams says to Matt Damon, "It's not your fault." Justin Jefferson is not your fault. Okay, it's just not. The quarterback play has been absurdly bad this year. Now JJ McCarthy will be an improvement over Brosmer because my God, the bar was set so low. But Jefferson is one of those Titanic players, I call them, which you're going down with the ship. You're playing the violin. He's your guy. Now, if you get to a point where you have some really great wide receivers and you can afford in a 2 wide receiver league to sit him because you've got a good flex play and 2 other wide receivers that are solid, I get it at this point. Now it's about winning championships. It's not about draft value, but very depressing. And I think the Vikings are going to have a lot of soul searching to do next year to figure out what they're going to do with that quarterback position, who they're going to bring in. And I don't know if McCarthy is going to be the answer. He'd have to be incredibly impressive these last few weeks. I don't know if
Yeah.
he's got it in him. And then you mentioned JSN. Of all the times, JSN has carried all these fantasy teams, I guess it's a good thing it happened this week instead of in week 15 when the playoffs go. Because you imagine
Right.
JSN carrying your team and then giving you a 2 points or something worse. Like, it's just crazy right now for what JSN's week 13 looked like. But obviously an anomaly. Obviously, they just didn't need to do anything. Brosmer was that bad. And look, at this stage in the game, too, with Saquon Barkley, I spoke about it in the preseason on FST every week. When you have over 400 carries in a season, the next year doesn't go well. There's also a video going around that I saw. It's fascinating where Barkley's kind of tipping a little bit. Pitchers will tip their pitches.
Hmm.
Barkley's in the backfield and he's moving his head back and forth every time it's a pass, and every time it's a run, he's looking straight ahead. Every play. And this 19-year-old kid did a TikTok about it, and he showed all the plays and he did all the
Wow.
homework on it. So if that 19-year-old kid figured it out, I'm pretty sure NFL coordinators have figured that out too going into the season.
Yeah, that's I got to change that. Pretty. I
Yeah.
would guess you won't see that again starting this week. Let's go real quick to the waiver wire, where the Jets are outscoring the Eagles right now. So one of the hot names on the waiver wire is Adonai Mitchell. He had 12 targets, 8 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. But we played this game with John Mechie the week before. Both are pretty much available in a lot of fantasy leagues. Blake Corum is seemingly more a part of the Rams offense. He scored a touchdown this past week. I just don't love the options here. I guess, Joe, if I thought I needed a win this week and I saw the injury to Tracy last night, it would be Devin Singletary because he's going to be the only guy left with the Giants, but they're off this week, so it can't really help
Yeah.
you. But to me, that would be the guy, like, if I was already in the playoffs, I would unload on because, again, listen, if he's not great with the Giants, I understand, but Joe, he's going to get every goal line carry moving forward.
Absolutely. And Singletary is still a league average or a little below league average back, right? Like that's kind of always what he's been at some point. So yes, he is definitely a guy, and I think because of the situation where you can't play him this week, you might get him a little cheaper. You might not have to empty the tank, but if you want to be sure, you do it. Blake Corum is another guy I think you absolutely have to have. Kyron Williams' health is a little bit in question right now. It seems like he's going to play again this week, but at the same time, you saw Blake Corum have a year high 81 yards, right? Blake Corum can step into a great offense and be very good. He can be a low end RB1, high end RB2 if something should happen. Jaden Higgins still floating around the waiver wire like him. As far as the Jets guys go, it's tough because you have John Mechie, who I think is more of that possession wide receiver. So in full point PPR, he gives you a lot of upside, that 10 points, just kind of steady 10, 12 points and get out. And with bye weeks this week, you might need that. AD Mitchell's got that big playability, but he's really athletic, really speedy, breakaway potential, separation, all that stuff. But catching the football is a problem sometimes for Mr. Mitchell. So that is the problem there. But Taylor's made the most of those two guys the last couple of weeks. The Jets have won some football games. They've been more competitive. One more name I want to throw out there, too, with Khalif Raymond not practicing yesterday, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, unlikely to play Thursday. Isaac Tesla is a must-add. He has a lot of
Right.
red zone appeal. He's had some big plays and some big moments. He's only a rookie, but he is a really good young talent, and he could help you this week as a streamer.
Kennedy was pretty good in that little bit that he got this past week too. It is tough in Detroit right
Yeah.
now. A lot of injuries. All right, Joe, have a good week, and we'll catch you this weekend here on FST. Thanks again.